The end of the year is busy, whether that be commitments at work or socially or with family, so it pays to be prepared in advance. Today we're looking at how I'm using 3 tools to get prepared for the busiest part of the year, along with some tips for how you can do the same. The first tool we're using is my brainstorming book. You can just use scrap paper if you'd prefer. I just like writing in something that feels a little bit more permanent. And this guy is going to be used for the first step in the process, which is figuring out the plan's purpose. I'm a big believer in purpose first, so this is where we figure out the aim or the aims of the end of year plan. Effectively, we're thinking about what are we trying to fit in or make time for or organize with this end of year planning. Here I'm just brainstorming the things that I want my plan to help me with, so mainly work, an end of year reset, holiday organization, and social time. These are my big categories, or kind of like life areas, that I want the end of year planning to help me organize. But while it's all good and well knowing these areas in general, what we really need to do is get specific. Step 2 is all about breaking those areas down by considering 2 things: the what and the how. What specifically do I need to do or need to organize in each area? And how can my planning help me organize those things? Here I'm starting with the what. So for each of the larger areas that I want my end of year planning to cover, I'm considering what specifically needs to get organized in them. For instance, for my holiday planning, I need to have a packing list for going away. I need to sort out if there's anything that needs to be done in terms of home care before we leave, or organizing people to take care of things while we're away. For my 2024 planning system, I need to sort out what my system priorities are. I need to organize the videos for any setups that I'm doing. I need to figure out when I'm going to set those things up, but effectively just going through each of the different areas and breaking them down to get a little bit more specific. When it comes to the how, what I'm really asking myself is, what journal layouts can I use to help me organize these things? Effectively, each of these specifics are a problem, and the layout is going to be the solution. For this part, I'm just going through my list of all of the different sub-items that I want to organize, and I'm specifying a layout that would help me with that. It's good to remember that not everything needs to be a layout or a collection in your journal. Some of these might just be individual tasks that are better suited on a weekly log, or maybe just a small list in a daily log or something similar. For those that won't need a full layout themselves, I'm making sure to color code those as I go. Most of them will just be tasks on a monthly log or something similar, so I'm highlighting them to make sure that they don't get forgotten. This step gives me a really good list of the journal collections that are going to really help when it comes to my end of year organization. So it's time to grab out our second tool, which is my journal. We all knew it was going to be one of them, nobody is surprised, but step 3 in our process is designing and setting up all of these layouts that we had in our brainstorm. Rather than taking you through the setup of the layouts, which is going to be a separate video for the members of the team with a capital T, we're just going to have a quick flip through of most of them. If you wanted to see the full setup video though, there are details in the description box with regards to how you can access that. But having a look at what we set up, the first page we have here is really just for a before 2024 to-do list. So anything that doesn't necessarily get captured on the subsequent pages, but needs to get done before the end of the year, I can drop in here. This one is our kind of like splash page or opening page. These pages were just set up at the back of my journal. And then after this, we're into what's going to end up being a timeline. So I'm going to be able to map out every day and what I'm doing on those days with regards to getting everything on the subsequent pages finished. This guy, on the other hand, is a release schedule, so I can see when releases are coming out so that I can make sure that any work I need to do for them happens before they get released. This is effectively just an analog version of the stuff that I typically keep in Notion, but I like to have it in my planner as well. I find that I'm better able to remember it if it's in here too. On to the next layout. This one is all about content making. So getting our membership perks sorted, getting our video sorted, in particular videos related to Vlogmas. And then I've also got a space here for non-video content, and then a little space down the bottom here for anything extra that doesn't really fit anywhere else. These 3 boxes here are set up in the Alistair method, so just a column for each of the steps to work on each of the pieces of content that will be released. Once everything is done for the piece of content, I can cross it off along the left-hand side. After this one, we have my yearly reset process, and this is where I'm going to map out each part of my yearly reset. And this layout over here is for my office revamp. It's looking a little bit bare at the moment, but this is effectively a place to put down any tasks that I have to do for the office revamp, and also plan out any of the layout of the office, write down any notes or things that come up. I've left it fairly open so that it can be quite flexible, as opposed to some of the other ones which are, very box heavy. After this one though, we have my holiday planning space. So this one for Christmas, again, left quite open because, not too sure at this stage what I might need to plan with regards to Christmas. And then the holiday plan has the itinerary over here and then a space for my packing list over here. I did technically leave a day off from our itinerary, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it's the last day and that one's really just go home, so it's not the end of the world. And then our back page over here is for my 2024 planner setup. So figuring out which planners I want to use, what videos I need to make, and then for each of the planners, what layouts do I want to include. These boxes don't yet have titles because we want to avoid spoilers, but if it helps, this one's going to be my yearly collections journal, and this one I think is going to be my everyday journal. The steps we've covered so far were determining the aims of this end of year planning, figuring out what needed organizing and how it could be organized, then setting up the layouts which would help with that. But we need to look at the most important aspect of this planning, which is when. It's all good and well to have all of these intentions for the end of the year, but when are they actually going to happen? Mapping out when everything is going to get done could totally be done in your journal, but I find that this process is often a messy one. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm like a little bit particular about how my journal looks. A bit of a persnickety biscuit. So this is where our third tool comes in, which is a week by week calendar. I just made this one in Excel. It's just a simple table, but this is my preferred way to organize my time come the end of the year. Moving my journal out of the way so that we can make use of this piece of paper. The first part of organizing the when of my end of year planning is actually considering when not. Here I'm just marking in any days that I know I can't or won't be working on things because I already know that I have things going on or I'm going to be away. I'm just marking those onto the calendar with washi tape so that I can easily see which days aren't available for me to work on. There's no point in scheduling a whole bunch of work time for a day that I'm already busy or I'm going to be away. So the washi tape limits the space that I have to write on those daily boxes, effectively as a way to stop me from overcommitting. Along with this, I also want to note any deadlines that I'm aware of, in particular with regards to my video releases, or perks for the team with a capital T. Those I'm marking in with a blue highlighter, but not writing in the video titles just yet, because spoilers. But knowing when releases are coming out can help me backwards plan when things are going to be happening. This is really important when it comes to doing a video per day in December, especially considering I'm not going to be around for a decent chunk of December. I need to make sure that those things are getting done ahead of time. The deadlines are in though, and the days that I'm not working, but it's also important to put down any other happenings. These are events that may not take me away from a full day of being able to get stuff done, but I want to capture them on here so that I have the best representation of my available time. What we now have is a good visualization of the time I have available to dedicate to those end of year plans we mapped out before. So yes, I want to dedicate time to work on Vlogmas, but which days in particular am I going to do that? I wanted to make social connection a big part of my end of year plan, so which days am I going to do those things? Effectively, this layout allows me to backwards plan my tasks. For instance, this is when I'm going to be away, which means that the day before it is probably when I'm going to be packing. As my Vlogmas content will start on the 1st of December, we're going to want some kind of a Vlogmas post to go out the day before. Here I'm going through and mapping out which days in particular I want to work on certain parts of my end of year list. One of the things that I'm really excited to work on are my 2024 journal setups, so stay tuned for those. We're going to have setup videos for at least 3 journals, so if you don't want to miss out on those, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. This is very much a rough draft of when things are actually going to happen, and I'll chop and change things as I go through, or as more things come up. You can see this doesn't fully map out all of my days just yet, but it's a really good starting point to see when I'll be working on what. Most importantly though, we do have the next 2 weeks planned out, so I can go and add those and any other set in stone deadlines to my neater, more formal outline in my bullet journal. While this process worked well for me in organizing my busy season, I do have some tips which will help in making your end of year planning process easier. My process goes through the order of looking at the purpose or aims of the planning, to the what, to the how, to the when. But it might make more sense for you to start with the when. If you're going to be really strapped for time in the upcoming weeks, it might be more useful to get clear on how much time you actually have before you start committing to things that you want to get done. In those cases, it's likely more useful to start by mapping out the commitments that you already have to see what time you could use to work on other stuff. Just like I've done with my brainstorming book and the weekly printout, starting messy is the way to go. This process kind of works like a jigsaw puzzle that doesn't really have one definitive layout, so you'll probably end up chopping and changing things or moving them around before you settle on a final timeline of tasks and events. If you're like me and you get a bit demotivated when your journal looks a mess, then starting on something that you don't mind being messy on can be really useful. You know those feelings where you think you have plenty of time to work on a project, and then the deadline kind of just sneaks up on you, and then everything ends up getting done in a rush at the last minute? Yeah, no, me neither. The tip here though is to start this planning process earlier than you think you'll need to. Being prepared isn't a bad thing, and it doesn't hurt to give ourselves more time to do the small mountain of things we want to achieve before the end of the year. As we talked about, one of the tasks that I have coming up, which I am most excited about, is planning out my new bullet journal setups, and every time I plan out a new journal, I follow the same steps to make sure it's my best one yet. If you wanted to know more about those steps so that you can plan out a journal that works for you, then the video in the top left is where it's at. Click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.